Hello students, my name is Rosalia Malundilange and I will take you through Mathematics for Business, which is a certificate level, year 1. My contacts are on the screen. You can call me if you have any queries. If I don't pick up, you can leave me a message and I'll get back to you. Firstly, we are going to look at the order of operations. Now, most of you, when you think of the order of operation, you think of board mass. Now we have moved from board mass and now we are using bed mass or paired mass. But everything remains the same. It's just the of that has moved. And the of, we know it was multiplication, and m is also multiplication. Now these two were meaning the same thing, but we did not take into consideration situations where we have exponents. Now bed mass or paired mass, B remains brackets, but the E is for exponents or powers, and P is parenthesis, which is another name for brackets. The D is still division, M is still multiplication, A addition, and S subtraction. Now whenever you are given an expression and you need to solve it, you need to follow the bed mass rule. Now remember, if you don't follow it properly, your answer will not be right. When we give you exercises or in the assignments and we give you expression that you want us to solve, we want you to solve, you have to make sure you follow the steps and you have to show all your works for you to get full marks. Okay? For example, when you are using bed mass, let's look at example 1. We have 20 minus, there's a square bracket, 3 multiply, open bracket, 2 plus 4, close the bracket, and then close the outer bracket. Now if you want to solve this problem, you have to follow bed mass. B, we have to start with a B for brackets. Now we see that we have 2 brackets. One is the inner bracket. First you have to solve the inner bracket before you solve the outer bracket. Now firstly there, you have to add 2 plus 4, you get an answer which is 6, and then you multiply 6 by 3 and you get 18. Now you do no longer have brackets, you have to go to the next operation. The next operation will be exponents. We do not have exponents. We go to division, there's no division, there's no multiplication, there's no addition, but there is subtraction. Then you just say 20 minus 18, and that will give you 2. In example 2, we have an exponent. Okay? And we also have brackets. First you have to solve the bracket. 6 minus 3, you get 3. Then you have 3 to the power of 2. That 2 there, up there, is the exponent. So you have to solve it. 3 to the power of 2 will give you 9. And then you have multiplication and subtraction. But using the order of operation, we know that multiplication will come first before subtraction. So you multiply negative 2 by 4. Then you get negative 8. Then 9 minus 8, you get 1. I think we have done enough examples there. We can move on to fractions. Now fractions is used to represent a whole part. Fraction consists of 2 numbers, a numerator and a denominator, and I hope you all know that. The number on top is called the numerator, and the one behind or below is called the denominator. We have types of fractions. There are 3 types. We have proper fractions, improper fractions, and we have mixed numbers. What is the difference between the 3? A proper fraction, the numerator is smaller than the denominator, while in improper is vice versa. The numerator is greater than the denominator. While in mixed number, we have a whole number part and then we have a fraction part. Now the fraction part does not matter if it's a proper or improper. As long as there's a whole number part and then a fraction part, then that becomes a mixed number. When we are adding fractions, we have rules. The simple rule is that for you to add fractions, the denominators have to be the same. Now when you are talking about the denominator, we are talking about the numbers below. Okay, you have a number up and then a number below. For you to add the fractions, those denominators have to be the same. If you are given different denominators, you have to make them the same before you add the fractions. Let's look at an example. We have 3 over 4 plus 2 over 7. In the first fraction, the numerator is 3, the denominator is 4. In the second fraction, the numerator is 2 and the denominator is 7. Now, if we look at these denominators, they are not the same. For the first one, we have 4, and for the second one, we have 7. Now, how do we make these denominators to be the same? There are different ways to make the denominators to be the same, but the simple one that I want my students to use is for them to multiply the two denominators. If you multiply the two denominators, you get 28. Now that 28 becomes your common denominator. This is not a LCM, the lowest common multiple. No, this is a common denominator. Why is it common? Because you just took the denominators and you multiply them together. These are some of the simple things that you have to get full marks on because they are really simple. Okay? Now what we do is we multiply the first fraction with the denominator of the second one, and we multiply the second fraction with the denominator of the first one. We will have 3 multiplied by 7 and 4 multiplied by 7. Now why are we doing that? At the end of the day, we want our bottom numbers or the denominators to be 28. Now if we do that for the first fraction, we'll see that we'll get 21 over 28. We have to do the same thing on the second fraction. Now with the second fraction, you have to multiply that whole fraction with the denominator of the first one. The denominator of the first one is 4. So we multiply the numerator of the second fraction, which is 2 by 4 and 7 by 4. At the end of the day, we will see that we are going to get 8 over 28. Now these two fractions at this stage have the same denominators, and that is what we want to achieve. Now what do you do when they have the same denominators? You leave the denominator as it is and you just add the numerators. Okay? If you are given mixed numbers, the rule still remains the same. But here, what I can advise you to do, make sure you change the mixed fractions into improper fractions so that you get rid of the whole number part. How do we change our mixed fractions to improper fractions? For example, we have 2 1 over 3. How do we change this to an improper fraction? First, we multiply the denominator with the whole number part. When we get the answer, we add the numerator. So we will have 2 multiplied by 3, or 3 multiplied by 2 is still the same, because this is multiplication, is commutativity law, and it will still give you the same answer. So 3 multiplied by 2 will give you 6, then 6 plus 1, it will give you 7 over 3. Now if you have it in this way, it's a bit simple for you to calculate. We do the same for the second fraction, which is 1 2 over 4. You change it to improper fraction and you get 6 over 4. Then still take the denominators, multiply them together. Why do we multiply them? We still want to get a common denominator. Why do we want a common denominator? Because that is the only way we can add the fractions, only when they have the denominators to be the same. And your answer there will be 46 over 12. And if you want to change it into improper fraction, it will be 3 5 over 6. But always leave your answers in the simplest form. And I will tell you what is the simplest form. We move on to subtraction. When you are subtracting fractions, we still follow the same steps as in addition. Okay? The denominators still have to be the same. The easiest way to get the denominators to be the same is what? I said you multiply the two denominators together. Okay, we look at this example here. We have 8 over 3 minus 5 over 6. The denominator of the first one is 3, the denominator of the second one is 6. The denominators are not the same, so you have to make it the same by finding the common denominator. To find the common denominator, just multiply the two denominators and you get 18. Now this 18 is the number that you want to be below on each fraction. You are going to multiply the first fraction with the denominator of the second one, multiply the second fraction with the denominator of the first one. At the end of the day, you'll find that the first fraction will be 48 over 18 and the second one will be 15 over 18. Now the denominators are the same, you just have to subtract the numerators. The denominators, when the denominators are the same, when you are adding or subtracting, just add or subtract the numerators and leave the denominator as it is. Now you get 33 over 18, which can be simplified to 11 over 6. That is a second example on subtraction. The rule is still the same. Now let's look at this exercise. Now that we have brought together addition and subtraction. When you have something like this is an expression. Now when we have something like this, what you need to do is you still have to follow BODMAS. Is there any brackets? Is there any exponents? Division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. We can see that we only have addition and subtraction. Between the two, which one comes first? Addition comes first. So you have to add the two fractions first before you minus the other fraction. I hope we are following them. Now, the two fractions that you have to add first is 2 over 4 plus 3 over 7. The denominators are not the same. You have 4 and 7. So you need to make the denominators to be the same. You multiply 4 by 7, you get 28. Then you take 2, multiply by 7, you get 14. 4 multiplied by 7, you get 28. Then you have 4 multiplied by 3, you get 12. And 4 multiplied by 7, you get 28. At the end of the day, you have 14 over 28 plus 12 over 28. Because we only add the numerator, then we will add 14 plus 12 and we get 26 over 28. Now it has become one fraction. Now you can subtract the 5 over 4. Now the denominators, they are not the same as well. You have to find the common denominator. You multiply 28 by 4 and you get 112. If you multiply the first fraction with the denominator of the second one, you will have 104 over 112. You multiply the second fraction with the denominator of the first one, you get to 140 over 112. And when you subtract the numerators, you get minus 36 over 112. Remember, 140 is greater than 104, so your answer will be negative. You need to be very careful with the signs. Now if you simplify that, or you look for a number that goes into both of them without leaving a remainder, it will be simplified to minus 9 over 28. When it comes to division of fractions, there are 3 simple steps, very, very simple. The first thing that you need to do is to reciprocate the right-hand side fraction. After you do that, then the division sign will change to multiplication. When you change to multiplication, then that is very, very simple. You just multiply the numerator with the numerator, denominator with the denominator. Simplify if you can. If you can't, then leave the answer as it is. Let's see. We have an example here. 1 over 2 divided by 1 over 6. The denominators do not need to be the same. Are we together? This is division. The rule is you reciprocate the right-hand side fraction. And the right-hand fraction is what? Is 1 over 6. Now to reciprocate means the denominator comes to the numerator side and then the numerator goes down to the denominator. Now since we have 1 over 6, when you reciprocate it, it will be 6 over 1. Okay? As soon as you do that, then the division side will change to multiplication. Now when the sign changes to multiplication, the next rule there is multiply the numerator with the numerator, the denominator with the denominator. 1 multiplied by 6 is 6, 2 multiplied by 1 is 2. Now you can see that the answer is 6 over 2. 6 over 2 can be simplified because 2 can go into 6 and 2 can go into itself. Now 2 goes into 6 how many times? It goes there 3 times, and 2 into itself, it goes there 1 time. So you will have 3 over 1, and 3 over 1 is equals to what? It's just equals to 3. We move on to multiplication. Multiplication is the easiest one. You don't need to do anything. The denominators don't need to be the same. You just multiply the numerator with the numerator, denominator is with the denominator. Simplify if you can. If you can't, leave your answer in fraction form. Now, most of you like leaving your answers into decimal. But when these questions come on fractions, they always say leave your answers in the simplest form. So you need to leave your answers in the simplest form. Do not change it into decimals. Okay, that's the end of fractions. We can move on to ratios. When we are talking about ratios, we are comparing two or more things. We are comparing it to one another. Now, ratios can be shown in different ways. We can either use the 2 dots, that is still comparing. You can use the word 2 is still comparing, or we can use the division sign. Now, if you say 3 to 1, this is the same thing as 3 to 1, and is the same thing as 3 over 1. We are comparing 3 to 1 in both the scenario. This is the 3 different ways on how to show ratios. Let's look at an example. There are 600 pupils in a school. The ratio of boys to girls in this school is 3 to 5. We want to know how many girls are there and how many boys are there. And we are told that they are in the ratio 3 to 5. So how many boys are in the school? That is the question that we are given. Now the ratio we are given is 3 to 5. The first thing that you need to do is to add the ratios together. 3 plus 5 will give you 8. Now this 8 represents the whole number of pupils or the whole number of learners at school. But we still want to know a portion of each. How many are girls out of 600 and how many are boys out of the 600? Now what we need to do is, the ratio is given as 3 to 5. Okay? And that is the ratio of boys to girls. What that means is we have boys and we have girls, and their ratio is 3 to 5. It means out of the 8, 3 are boys, and out of not 3 pupils, but this is the portion of the boys compared to the girls. Okay? Now, when we want to find the ratio of boys, you are going to take 3, which belongs to the boys. You divide it by 8, which is the total of the ratio, and multiply by 600, and we'll find out that there are 225 boys in that school. And the ratio of girls is 5 out of 8. If you multiply it by 100, you are going to get 375. But the question only asks how many boys are in school. So you just need to find the number of boys, and you do not need to find the number of girls, because you are only asked to find the number of girls. Not of girls, but of boys. Okay, the first example that we had the total number of boys, or the total, not the total number of boys, but I mean the total number of learners in that school. But in this example here, we are not given the total. Okay, let's look at the question. The proceeds from the sales of a car are shared between the 3 people, Louisa, Brian, and Maria, in the ratio of 3 to 4 to 5. The first person received 36,000. Now, when you look at this question, they are talking about the portion that the first person received. The 36,000 is not the total amount of money they are going to share, but is the share of the first person, who is Louisa. Now we do not know how much they shared. Okay, and that is the question that they are asking in the first part. What was the value of the total proceeds to be shared? That one is unknown. If we have to refer this, compare it with the first example that we had, the total proceed they are asking for is like the 600 learners in school. It's known how many people are in school. But in this case, we are looking at the total amount of money that was shared, but it is not known. Okay? So in a place where you put 600, you are going to put what? You are going to put X, because the amount that was shared is not known. But what the first person got as her share is known. And then the second question is asking how much did each of the other people receive. Now, if you do not find the first answer, which is the total proceeding, then you cannot answer the second one, because you will not know how much does each of the rest receive. Out of what? That is what you don't know. Okay? Now what we do there, the steps are still the same. You still have to add the ratios together, 3 plus 4 plus 5, and it will give you 12. Now, the total amount that was shared is not known. So you have to represent it by X. Now, most of you don't like this X. I don't know why. But this just represents the amount of money that is not known. Now, what we do is the first ratio, which is 3, belongs to Louisa. Okay? Now, this Louisa, we are told she got 36,000. 36,000 out of what? That is what we do not know, isn't it? So we are going to, the way we did it in the first example, we take the ratio of Louisa, which is 3, out of the total proceeding. The total ratio is 12, but this 12 was multiplied with a certain number, and that certain number is unknown, but it gives an amount of 36,000. Now, how do we find the value of X when it's not given? This is very simple. You just have to get rid of the 3 over 12. If you get rid of 3 over 12, then you remain with X. Okay? Now, how do we get rid of the 12? We have 3 over 12 multiplied by X. Now, because of this multiplication, between these two numbers here, there's a multiplication there. To get rid of this part, you have to divide by itself. Just like we know, if we have 2 over 2, then we get 1. But since we are talking about X here, if you say 2 over 2, you do not write 1x, but you only remain with what? You only remain with x. We do not write 1x because we know that x is already 1. Now, if you want to get rid of it, you have to divide it by itself. You have to divide it by itself. And that is what we are being shown in the screen there. You have read 3 over 12 in red, and you have 3 over 12 in black. And you can see that they cancelled out. Of course, yes, when you divide a quantity by itself, it goes off. Now, because you have an equality sign in the middle, whatever you do on the left hand side, you also have to do it on the, what you do on the left, you do it on the right. Okay? Now, when we divide on the left hand side, we see that the 3 over 12 cancels out, and you only have x. But when you divide 36,000 by 3 over 12, then you get 144,000. Now, what is this 144,000? This is the total amount that was shared. Because if you now have to take the ratio of Louisa and multiply it by what? By 1,444, you will see that we are going to get the 36,000, which we are told this person got as her share. Now we got the total amount that was shared, which was 144,000. Okay? For you to confirm if this is correct, you have to take 3 over 12, you multiply it with that amount, then you should get 36,000. If you do not get 36,000, then it means something has gone wrong somewhere. But this is correct because we can confirm it right there. Now that we got the total proceedings, we can find the shares of Brian and Maria. Now some of you have problems on how to press the calculator. You need to practice. The calculator will always give you correct answers, but only when you input the correct things. Okay? The share of Brian will be 48,000. The share of Maria will be 60,000. If you want to check if your answer is correct, take all the shares together, add them together, and it should give you the total proceeding, which is equals to what? It's equals to 144,000. We move on to proportions. In proportions, we are still comparing two or more quantities. But in here, we want to see the relationships between the variables, and the relationships into variables are in two ways. It's either they are related in a positive way or related in a negative way. When they are related in a positive way, we say they are directly proportional, and when they are related in a negative way, then we call that indirect proportion. Now, direct proportion, when one amount increases, then the other amount will also increase at the same rate. But when they are indirect, when one amount is increasing, the other amount will be decreasing. They go in different directions. Indirect, when one is increasing, the other one will increase. In indirect, when one is increasing, the other one will be decreasing. Now, when these questions on proportion comes, we will not tell you that this is a direct proportion and this is an indirect proportion. You will have to look at the variables in question. How are they related to one another? When one is increasing, what happens to the other one? When the other one is decreasing, what happens to the other variable in question? If they all go in the same direction, then you know that that is direct proportion. When they go in different directions, then you know that that is indirect, and the way we calculate them are different. Indirect proportion, this is when one quantity increases, the other quantity also increases. Let's look at a simple example that can everyone understand. If 2 loaves of bread cost $24.60 at shop B, how much will 5 loaves of bread? I can see the 5 not loaves but loaves, okay? The 5 loaves of bread cost at the same shop. Now here you can find the answers in 2 different methods. The first method, we do what we call the cross multiplication, right? We say 2 is equals to 24.6. Then 5 is equals to what? It's not known, so we use x. Okay? Because these 2 variables, which is the quantity and the amount of money to be paid, are directly related, meaning the more bread you take, the more money you pay. The less bread you take, the less money you pay. They are all going in the same direction. We can use cross multiplication. Okay? Now what we do there is, we say 2 is equals to 24, 5 is equals to x. You have to cross multiply. You say 5 multiplied by 24 and 2 multiplied by x. Then you have 2x is equals to 5 multiplied by 24, and 2x will be equals to 123. Then 2x is equals to 123. Then you have to solve for x there. Just like in the previous example that we had, we have 2x is equals to 123. We want to get rid of this 2 so that this x remains the same. This is a 2. I hope you can see it. Now, we want to get rid of this 2 there. To get rid of it, I said you have to divide it by itself so that it cancels. Since you did it on the left-hand side, you also have to do it on the right-hand side. Whatever you do on the left, to do it on the right when you have an equality sign in the middle, so that you don't change the problem. Then you will see that because the 2 has gone, you only have x. X is equals to what? X is equals to 61.5. Now it means 5 loaves of bread will cost how much? $61.50 at the same shop. Method 2 is to find the unit price. You know that $24.60 is for 2 loaves of bread. Now you want to know how much does each loaf of bread cost. Now what you do is you just divide the 24.6 by 2, and then you find that 1 loaf of bread is $12.60. Now how do you get the price of the 5 loaves of bread? You just multiply the 12 by 5 and you get the same answer. If you look at the exercises there, you will see that all these variables under this study are directly related. When one increases, the other one will increase. If one is decreasing, the other one will also decrease. Okay? We move on to indirect or inverse proportion. Now the way you treat these two proportions is the same. You are always cross-multiplying. You do not cross-multiply always. You only cross-multiply when the two variables in question are directly related. When they are indirectly related, the rule that we follow is shown on the screen there. Let's say you have 4 people that can paint a fence in 3 hours. How long will it take 6 people to paint it? Now if 3 people will do it in 3 hours, 6 people will have to do it in less time, because now we have a lot of hands, isn't it? Okay? Now if you cross multiply, your answer that you are going to get will be wrong. What we do is we say 4 is equals to 3, then 6 is equals to x. The x is the number of hours that you want to find, how many hours it will take these people to finish the job. Okay? Now we just take 4, we multiply it by 3, 6 we multiply it by x, and then we get 4 multiplied by 3 is 12, 6 multiplied by x is 6x, then 12 over 6 is equals to 6 over 6. Now where did the 6 come from? So that it's under 12 there. We are getting rid of 6 on the right hand side. To get rid of it so that x remains on its own, you divide it by itself. Because we are doing it on the right, you should do it on the left, and then we find that x is equals to 2. So 6 people will only need 2 hours to paint the fence. Okay? We move on to linear equations. Okay? What is an equation? Okay? The equation is a simple thing. It just states that what is on the left is equals to what is on the right. That's it. Okay? Let's say, for example, you have x plus 2 is equals to 6. It means if you find the value of x on the left, you add it to 2, it will give you 6. So 6 is equals to 6. Okay? Now the parts of the equation. Let's look at 4x minus 7, which is equals to 5. Now the 4, because that value is in front of a variable, it will be called a coefficient. And then the x, because this one varies, then it's called the variable. But 7 that stands on its own, it does not have a variable after it, then it's called a constant. And also 5 that is standing on its own is also called a constant. Now how do you solve simple linear equations? I know you have a problem with this. It's very simple how we solve it. Let's say you have 5x plus 2, which is equals to 17. What do you do first? You have to collect like terms. Like terms will be the coefficients or values with x terms on one side and the values that are constants on the other side. Now we can say that there's only one term which has x, so it's on its own, and then we have 2 and 17 which are constant. So those are like terms, you have to take them together. Now you see 2 on the left hand side is positive. When it crosses the equality sign, it becomes negative. Okay? Why is that? It's because we want to get rid of 2 on the right hand side. Now to get rid of it, you have to subtract it from itself so that it goes 2 minus 2, it becomes 0. That's why we are minusing it on the other But in the terms that you put it, bring it on the other side, it becomes negative. It's also 5. Then 17 minus 2, you get 15. Now 5 there, 5x, you want x to be on its own. So you have to divide by 5 to get rid of it, isn't it? Then 5 divided by 5, then x is equals to 15 over 5, which is equals to 3. Now, how do you know if this answer is correct? You can substitute the answer in the original equation. Where there's x, 5x, you put 3. Then that will be 5 multiplied by 3. 5 multiplied by 3 will be 15. 15 plus 2 is equals to 17. So the right hand side is equals to the left hand side. Then your answer is correct. If you look at number 2, you have brackets there. You have to open it up. Multiply 2 by x, 2 by 3. Then you open up the bracket. You have 2x plus 6, which is equals to 5x minus 1. There's 2 terms with x. Bring them on one side. It does not matter if you bring them on the right hand side or you bring them on the left hand side. Your answer will still be the same. Okay, now you have a fraction part there. You have 2x plus 5 equals to 5 over 4x minus 11, right? Now, what we want to do there is to get rid of 4 so that our equation becomes simple. We do not want to work with denominators. Now, to get rid of the 4, multiply that fraction with 4. If you multiply the whole fraction with 4, then we are going to get 4 over 4, and it will cancel out. Now, since you multiply that term, the 5x over 4 by 4, you have to multiply it throughout all the other terms, okay? On the right and on the left. That way, you are not going to change the equation, okay? Now, we multiply with 4 here, multiply with 4 everywhere, then we'll see that the denominator 4 disappears, and then we just have a straight line. Not straight, yeah, it's straight because there's no more denominators. We've gotten rid of the denominator. Then we can solve that. We can solve that, okay? We move on to simultaneous equations. Simultaneous equations are solved in 2 ways. You can use elimination method and we can use substitution method. Now these 2 methods are both simple. You just need to follow the rules and you get your correct answers, get correct marks, and there you pass. First, we are starting with substitution. Now, in the question, in the assignments or in the exams, you always be given instructions. Solve by substitution or solve by elimination. If you are told to solve by substitution, use substitution. If you are told to solve using elimination, you should use elimination. If you do what you're not asked to use, then you will not get any marks for that, even if your answers are correct. You just have to follow the rules. But if you are not given any instructions, then you can choose any method that is easier to you. Okay? The steps there you can go through on your own. Let's look at the example. You have 3x plus 2y is equals to 19, x plus y is equals to 18. These are simultaneous equations solved simultaneously. Simultaneously means solved at the same time. You have 2 unknown variables, so you have to solve them at the same time to get the values of each. Okay? What we do is you have to take one of the equations and you make one variable subject of the formula. Now, if you make one of them subject of the formula in one equation, you have to take that, what you have made subject of formula, and substitute it in the other equation that you didn't use. For this example, the second equation, okay? The second equation, which is x plus y is equals to 8, was they made y subject of the formula. Or we are making y subject of the formula. We take x on the other side where there is 8, then it becomes a negative. Then we have y is equals to 8 minus x. Now that 8 minus x is now the new value of y. Now in the first equation, you have 2y. Where there's y, you should put 8 minus x, because we are saying now y is equals to 8 minus x. Now when you open up the brackets, you will see that you will no longer have y. You are only going to have what? You are only going to have x. Okay? Now when you have x, then you have 3x plus 2 multiplied by 8, and also 2 multiplied by negative x is equals to 19. Then that will give you 3x plus 16 minus 2x is equals to 19. Okay? You collect like terms. 3x minus 2x will be on your left hand side if you want, and then the constants go on the other side. Then we will find that our x value is equals to 3. Okay, now if our x value is equals to 3, substitute it in any of the equations, in the original equation or in the equation where you made y to be equals to y to be in terms of x, then you will see that your value of y is equals to 5. Okay, this second example, we are still using substitution method. Let's look at elimination. To eliminate means getting rid of something. So you decide if you want to get rid of x or you want to get rid of y. Okay? Now for you to get rid of either x or y, the coefficients, the values in front of the variable. You have, let's say, 2x. This is a coefficient and this is the variable. Now if you want to, let's say you want to get rid of x here, then this coefficient in the first equation and also in the second equation, they have to be the same. We have 3x plus 2y is equals to 19, x plus y is equals to 8. Now you decide which one do you want to eliminate. Let's say we want to eliminate y. The first one in the first equation is 2y, but in the second equation is only y. You cannot eliminate because those two are not equal. But if you make them equal, 2y, then you can eliminate. So what we need to do is to multiply the second equation by 2. If you multiply the second equation by 2, then you will have 2x plus 2y is equals to 16. Now 2y and 2y can eliminate itself. How do you eliminate it? By subtracting it from one another. 2y minus 2y will give 2y minus 2y will give you 0. Because now you are subtracting the 2y and the 2y so that it becomes 0, you are also going to subtract all the other terms. Okay? So for the first one, you are going to say 3x minus 2x. Are we together? We are using minus because that minus is the one that we used to get rid of what? Of the y. Then you get that your answer is equals to what? X. Because 3x minus 2x will give you x. 3 minus 2 is 1. But we don't write 1x, we just write x. And then we'll see that 2y minus 2y is equals to 0. That's why you do not have anything there and is equals to 3. You can already see that you already got the value of x, and the value of x is equals to what? 3. And if you substitute the value of x in either the first equation or the second equation, then it will give you the value of y. And the value of y will be equals to what? It will be equals to 5. You need to read more on this. It's very important. It will always come in your assignment, also in your exams. We move on to quadratic equations. Now the quadratic equation is in the standard form of a to the power of x, ax to the power of 2 plus bx plus c is equals to 0. A, b, and c are constants. But a can never be 0. If a becomes 0, then x to the power of 2 will also become 0. Then you don't have a power of 2, then that is not quadratic. It will become a linear equation. It is quadratic because of that power, which is 2. Okay? Now the way we solve quadratic equations, you can use factorization method or you can use the quadratic formula. These are the only two methods that you can expect either in your exam or in the assignment. But these are not the only ways on how we solve quadratic equations. Factorization, when we factorize, there's two different ways on how we factorize. Okay? we look at the coefficient, which is a. Okay, is a equals to 1, or is a equals or is a greater than 1? When a is equals to 1, the way we factorize is not the same as when a is greater than 1. Okay, when a is equals to 1, what we do is we look for the factors of c. Remember, we have a x to the power of 2 plus bx plus c equals to 0. Okay, what we do is we want to find all the factors of c. The factors of c are the numbers that you multiply and you get c. Okay, now when you get these factors, we want the two factors of c that if you add them or subtract them, you will get b. Okay, you always make sure the factors of c can be a lot, but the ones that you are going to choose is the ones that if you add or subtract, it will give you b. Now you have to keep in mind of the sign that is in front of b. If it's minus, then you make sure those two factors of c, you should adjust them, make them both positive or both negative, but you should make sure that the result that you are going to get here, it should be what is there. Are we together? But when you multiply them positive, they should give you c. But for you to get b, you can either make both of them positive, one of them positive, one negative, as long as it will give you b. Okay, then when you get that, then you can replace it with you put it in place of b. Okay, what am I saying here? Let's look at the example. We have x to the power of 2 plus 3x minus 4 equals to 0. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes. What is the value of a? It's 1. That's why you only have x to the power of 2. What's the value of b? Is 3. And the value of c is minus 4. Are we together? Okay. Now we are going to look for the factors of c, as I said first. The factors of c. If you multiply 1 by 4, it will give you the factors of c. Now c in this case is 4, isn't it? Now you get the factors of c. 1 multiplied by 4 will give you 4. 2 multiplied by 2 will give you what? Will also give you 4. But which of the two? Is it 1 multiplied by 4 or 2 multiplied by 2 that can give you 3? It's only 1 multiplied by 4 that can give you 3. Why are we talking about the 3? The 3 is our b, and we said we look for the factors of c that will add or subtract, and it will give you what? It will give you b. Now our b is 3. We have the factor 1 and 4. What do we do to 1 and 4 so that it gives us a positive 3? 1 have to be negative. Okay? You say 4 minus 1, it will give you 3. But if you say 1 minus 4, that will not give you a positive 3. Are we together? So 1 has to be negative. So that when you subtract it from 1, or you say minus 1 plus 4, it would still give you 3. Then that is a favorite outcome that we are getting, and that is what we want to find, isn't it? Okay, now what we are going to do is we take the 4 and the minus 1 and replace it with the 3. Now what I'm saying here is we have 3x as given in our quadratic equation there. We have x to the power of 2 plus 3x minus 4 equals to 0. What we want to do now is to use the 1 and the 4 to replace 3x. And we are saying the 1 must be negative, minus 1, that will give you 3. If you put x there, we put x there, then it will give us 3x. So 4x minus x, which came from the 1 and the 4, if you put it in place of 3x, it will still be the same thing. You are not going to change anything, because 4x minus x is still 3x. Why do we do that? Is because we want to make these terms 1, 2, 3. We want to break them, to break this into 2, so that we have 4 terms. Why do we want to have it in 4 terms is because we want to factorize them by grouping. You can only factorize by grouping when you have 2 things together and the other 2 things together. What I'm saying is, we have x to the power of 2. Then it will be plus 4x minus x minus 4 equals to 0. Now what we did here is we broke 3x into 2, so that I will factorize these 2 and factorize those 2, and then in that way I can get my answer. Now, to factorize means we want to find the values or something that is common to 2 terms. Are we together? There's a x there and there's also a x there, isn't it? Now we can take it out, we can factor it out. When we factor it out, we are going to say x is in both of them, isn't it? When we take x from x squared, we only remain with x. And when we take x from 4x, we only remain with 4. Okay? Now we have factored out. We have factored out what? We have factored out x. And we do the same for the next one. There is, the only thing that is common there is 1. Okay? So if we factor it out, the minus 1, we are only going to factor out minus 1. What will be remaining is x plus 4. Why am I saying plus here? Because when you open up this bracket using a minus 1, this has to be negative because it's negative in there. Now if we look at that, we are going to see that this bracket and this bracket are the same, isn't it? Now we take it out. We take it out, meaning factoring it out again, like we did on the screen. Then we have x plus 4. What will be remaining, if we factor out this one, meaning we take it out, put it somewhere, what is remaining is only x minus 1, which is what we have on the table there. After that, then it means it's either the bracket, which is x plus 4, or x minus 1, which is equals to 0. And if you equate it to 0, you solve for x, then you find that your x is equals to 1, or your x is equals to minus 4. And those are the only factors that if you substitute them in the original equation, you are going to get 0. Okay. The quadratic formula is simple. You can go through on your own. And I think for today, we will end here and we will meet again. Thank you for your time. When you have questions, do not hesitate to call me. My numbers were provided at the beginning of the slides. Thank you very much.